Hello, everyone out there. Thanks for joining us for another local author series. My name is Veron Harris, and today I have with me Ann Weston. How are you doing today, Ann?
Fine, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to be on your very interesting and worthwhile series of programs.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for joining us. And today we'll be discussing Ann's book, My Brother Needs a Boa. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
From an early age, I loved to travel. This was fortunate because my family also liked to travel. And so we did a lot of it. Of course, when I was very young, I thought it was great fun to spend a whole vacation camping out of our station wagon. Mm. Or I also loved to do things like take a Greyhound bus across country and be on that bus 3 days and nights. That was fun for me, but today I still love to travel, but I prefer more comfort. In addition to traveling a lot when I was little, we lived in different parts of the country, Washington, D.C., North Dakota, Minnesota, California. Then by that time I was college age. I wanted to go to a part of the country I had never been or I hadn't been to since I was very little. So I went to college near Philadelphia. I studied sociology just because it was interesting, but fortunately I also studied Spanish, which came in very handy in my life. And I think to learn another language, even just a little bit, a few phrases, is something that you may think you'll never use, but then you will be astounded at some point in your life where you find it handy to be able to say a few phrases in some other language. You might come across someone in difficulty and you realize you're the only person who knows what they're trying to express. So take advantage of those language classes in school or just on your own, learn a few phrases.
So you have a lot of different interests, and I definitely want to touch on the traveling. But before we get there, I want to talk a bit about your writing. You've been published in Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine. Talk a bit about the stories you've submitted, and talk a bit about your mystery influences, like what brought you into the genre of mystery, which stories or books do you like? So just talk a bit about that.
Going back to when I finished college, I went back to California, and there I met my husband, Patrick, and we moved to Mexico, Baja California. Which we enjoyed immensely. Patrick and I both love traveling and being in different places. And he's a very talented home builder. So he built us a home near the beach where I would enjoy reading mysteries in particular, but I never dreamed I would write mysteries. Some years later, we took a vacation to Costa Rica, and we really liked a particular very remote area, a rainforest there. Our area in Mexico was getting built up and developed, so we decided we would give it a try living in the rainforest. We moved there to Costa Rica, and Patrick built another beautiful home. And then I began having in my mind, as I would walk in the rainforest, I would hear stories from our neighbors, mysterious events, supernatural legends, little mysteries. And I also really enjoyed learning from our neighbors about the their knowledge of the rainforest, the uses for the different trees and plants, the behavior of the wildlife. And in my mind, I got this image of a detective, but not what you would think of as a regular detective. He was, this image in my mind, he was a man of the rainforest. He had always lived there. He had never been to school, couldn't read or write, but he would solve mysteries. He would come across mysteries and he would solve them when everyone else was stumped by his knowledge of the rainforest. He would see clues that other people didn't see. He would notice oddities. Why was that animal out there at that hour of the day? That's not normal. Why did the rooster crow? Why? All these different clues he would know and no one else would. So I wrote a very short mystery story and sent it to Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine. Amazingly, they selected it, published it, and I proceeded to write maybe 8 more stories. It would be 1 or 2 published a year, featuring my detective and his wife, who would help him in many ways because she had been to school. She could read and write. So there were times when he needed that. The mystery influence in my writing, it's, even though my children's book isn't a mystery really, the idea of the suspense, carrying through the suspense during your story, that's important to keep in mind, whether it's a mild suspense, as in this story, not frightening like the Alfred Hitchcock ones. It's useful to have that, keep that bit of suspense going.
Your stories, they're based from your experience in Costa Rica, specifically your time in the rainforest. But while you were there collecting these stories, you also did something else. You and your husband established a rainforest reserve. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. When we first moved to the rainforest, we thought we would just build a little house on a hill with a beautiful view of the ocean and a few acres around it with our garden. And we thought that was all we do. But next to us was a rainforest. And in our area, the rainforests were being whittled away, not by large scale logging, but just by people taking some logs here and there, people clearing larger areas for cornfields or pastures. And this rainforest near us was pretty much abandoned, so no one was caring for it, no one was responsible for it. We looked into what we might be able to do, and we found that it was actually for sale. We bought it, and then we found we needed to let it be known that it was a rainforest, valuable in a scientific and cultural and environmental way. So we wanted to bring student groups. We wrote, before internet, we wrote letters to 50 universities. We collected addresses of universities all over the world, wrote them a letter saying, if you would like to come stay at our rainforest, uh, you can stay here for free, just to get it known that it was worth being protected for the future. Most of the universities, surprisingly, took the time to write back, and generally we were just too remote for them, or didn't fit in with their plans. But Princeton University replied that they had a group of graduate students who needed a place to come and work on their theses, their projects. And so by mail, which was difficult and slow, we arranged it all, wrote out the directions, how they could find us. They told us about when they would show up. We had a palm thatched building, no walls, but a roof ready for them. And some of the local women were all ready to cook their meals. They would pay, the students would pay for their meals. And this was a great opportunity for the women in our area to earn some money of their own. At that time, there really was no way for them to earn their own money. So there we were waiting for the Princeton students. Remember, no telephones. Nearest phone was a half-day drive.
Oh, wow.
No internet. So we waited. We happened to be down by the road because this was the day we pretty much figured they'd show up. Here along the poor rutted road came a cattle truck bouncing along, but it did not have cattle in its open back. It had a whole crowd of students. It was the Princeton students. They said that they had rented a van in the capital city with a driver. The driver had headed down to our area. The road kept getting worse and worse. And finally, there on this potholed road, the driver of their van said, I am not taking my vehicle any further. You can go back to the capital city with me, or you can get out here. And those students, those Princeton students, they said, we'll get out and find our own way. They climbed down from the back of that cattle truck with their backpacks, stood in the road, and before long, they climbed out of the van. The Princeton students climbed out of the van and stood there in the road, and before long, here came a cattle truck that had just taken some cows somewhere. And the driver said he'd be glad to drive them another 2 hours or so to look for our place. He didn't know where it was, but he thought he could find it. So the students climbed in the cattle truck and headed down the road, and there we were. And we knew who they had to be. So they had a very nice time doing their projects in the rainforest. We did several groups or a number of groups like that.
So yeah, as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you talk, I realize how we take technology for granted. Like, you and I are in two different locations, but we're talking through a computer right now. So let's go back to just life in Costa Rica at that time. This was even before the time of internet, but at the same time, you still had no electricity and the roads were inaccessible. Did you find that life to be exciting or challenging? Just talk a bit about that.
It was exciting, challenging, very difficult, but never boring. That's the one thing, we were never bored. So as I said, we had to drive half an hour to make a phone call. And even then, it was we would go to an office if it was well, if it was a local call within Costa Rica, you could use outdoor phone booth, put coins in.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was an international call, you would go to a special office, give the attendant the number and the country that you wanted to call. Then you would stand there and wait. It might be an hour. It might be more than an hour that the attendant, who was also taking care of other people who needed to make calls, the attendant would eventually get to you, make your call, and you would pick up the phone and speak. Also, we had solar panels for electricity. They worked very well. The energy went into batteries, so we could have a blender, a microwave. We even had a TV. Now we did have to, on cloudy, when we had a string of cloudy days, we would keep an eye on our electricity use, and we were always careful not to leave lights on when we didn't need them. We were much more aware and careful with our power use there so that we'd be sure to have power for what we needed. We had a propane refrigerator, gas refrigerator, not electric, and it was quiet. It was great. It was very quiet. But that was starting in 1988, and in the mid 1990s, we got regular electricity to our area.
All right. So your book, if I had to guess, My Brother Needs a Boa, is influenced from the people you've met in these villages, and just the landscape as well. It draws from your experience in Costa Rica. So just talk a bit about the process of writing this book and ultimately the process to get this book published.
One day, a neighbor of ours was visiting. She and I were sitting on the porch. Her brother owned the local store, little tiny general store. And the neighbor said to me, my brother needs a boa. There's a rat in the store. And I thought, what a perfect lead in for a book. She wanted to find a snake, the boa, that is well known for eating rats and mice. She wanted to get one for her brother so it would chase the rat out of the store. So after the neighbor left, I thought, I am going to write this up as a children's story. I wrote the story in a week. However, that was just the first of many, many drafts. It took over 2 years of rewrites and sending the story out to different publishers and getting the comments from the editors, and then rewriting again. So after a week of writing the first draft and then more than 2 years of writing of rewriting and sending it to publishers, then it was accepted by Starbright Books. Starbright Books publishes children's books, especially they have a lot of titles from other cultures. As many countries around the world are represented in their books as possible. They even have books in a number of different languages. They published, it took another year after they accepted the book before it was actually in print. And that was a thrilling moment to hold that book. We right side up?
Yes.
Okay.
So do you mind reading that for us today?
I would love to. My brother needs a boa, and here is the boa snake curving around to the back of the book. Now the boa is usually a gentle snake. He's a calm snake, and they just like to be left alone. They're not a danger to people. We don't have to worry about the boa too much. Now, the book has the main character named Benito. Benito is a young man who has a little store in the rainforest. In the book, you may notice that I use a word in Spanish. See if you can listen and hear that word, gracias, gracias. It means thank you. And that is one of the best words you can learn in another language. It's a very useful word, gracias, meaning thank you in Spanish. Here's the book. My brother needs a boa. Benito lives in a rainforest. His house is in a village by a river. Monkeys, anteaters, and boas live in the rainforest too. Coconut palms line the streets of Benito's village. The roofs of the houses are made of palm leaves. Benito has a store at his house. Before he opened his store, people had to shop in another village. At sunrise, they had to travel down the river. They didn't get back till the sunset. Benito's neighbors are happy to have a store in their own village now. There's the anteater, the store, the village. Benito is happy too. He likes talking to his neighbors when they come to shop. But last week brought trouble. On Sunday, a strong wind whirled through the village. It blew a monkey out of a mango tree. It carried an anteater across the river. It shook coconuts off the palm trees. Monday morning, Mrs. Murillo came to Benito's store. The wind blew down 4 coconuts in my yard, she said. Now I need brown sugar to make coconut candy. Benito showed her the brown sugar. Each block of sugar was wrapped in corn shucks to keep it clean. Mrs. Murillo picked up 1 block. Eek, she shrieked. I see teeth marks in the wrapper. A rat has gnawed this sugar. She dropped it and ran out of the store. Mrs. Murillo yelled to her husband, "Get our boat ready. You must take me to the store in the next village. There's a rat in Benito's store." Everyone in the village heard Mrs. Murillo. "Benito has a rat in his store," they said. "We like Benito, but we don't want to shop in a store with a rat." And there is Mrs. Murillo running out of the store and telling everybody about the rat. Monday afternoon, no one came to Benito's store. Benito searched for the rat. He looked behind the candles people used to light their houses. He looked inside the boots people wore in the rain. He looked under the sacks of corn people bought for their chickens. At last, Benito saw the rat's whiskers behind the umbrella. But quick as a snap, the rat hid. There's the rat behind the umbrellas. "I'll never get that rat out of here," Benito told his sister Vilma. "People will never come back to my store. What can I do?" "You need a boa," Vilma told him. "The boa will chase the rat out of the store." "That's a good idea," Benito said. "But how can I get a boa?" "Don't worry," Vilma said. "I'll help you." Tuesday morning, Vilma walked to the river to wash clothes. My brother needs a boa, she told the other ladies there. The ladies nodded. We heard about the rat. And there's his sister telling the other ladies at the river that her brother needs a boa. Soon, Tuesday afternoon, Vilma rode her pony to her cousin Estella's house to help make jam. My brother needs a boa, Vilma told her. Soon everyone knew Benito needed a boa. Wednesday morning, Benito's uncle Julio came to the store. Benito, Julio called, I brought you a boa. Julio had a snake on his arm. That boa is too small, Benito said. Gracias, but I want a boa that will scare the rat. Wednesday afternoon, Benito heard ox cart wheels outside the store. Benito called Benito's neighbor, Rafael. I brought you a boa. Benito looked in the ox cart. A huge snake filled the cart. There it is. That boa is too big, Benito said. Mrs. Murillo will scream if she sees it. Gracias, but I want a boa that won't scare people. Thursday morning, Estella's daughter, Estenita, skipped into the store. She carried a bag she had made from string. She had made the string from tree bark. Benito, I brought you a boa, she said. Benito looked in the bag. He saw a long piece of vine. Then he saw the vine was really a thin snake. That's not a boa, he said. That's a vine snake. It won't scare the rat. Gracias, but I want a boa. Thursday afternoon, Mr. Murillo came to the store. Benito, I brought you a boa. It's in my boat. They walked to the river. Benito looked in the boat. This boa wasn't too big, it wasn't too small, but it looked fat. That boa just ate, Benito said. It needs to rest for a week. Gracias, but I want a boa that is ready to chase the rat away now. Benito dragged his feet as he walked back to his store. No one was shopping. Night came. Benito lay in his hammock. What if no one ever comes to my store again, he thought. Then a long, low shadow slipped through the open door. The shadow slid across the floor and up the wall. A boa. It was not too small, not too big, and ready to work. The boa looked at Benito. Benito looked at the boa. The boa rested on a shelf. Friday morning, Benito saw something move near the umbrellas. The rat ran to the open door. Behind it came the boa. The rat went out the door. The boa went back to the umbrellas. Gracias, Benito said to the boa. The rat is gone, Benito told his sister Vilma. Friday afternoon, Vilma picked star fruit. She took it to the Murillo's house. My brother has a boa now, she told them. The rat is gone. Good, said Mrs. Murillo. I need matches for my stove. I'll buy them at Benito's store. Saturday morning, Vilma milked her cow and made cheese. She wrapped a ball of cheese in a banana leaf. She took it to her cousin Estella. My brother has a boa now, she said. The rat is gone. Good, said Estella. I need corn for my chickens. I'll send Estelita to get it at Benito's store. Saturday afternoon, Vilma went to the river to wash clothes. My brother has a boa now, she told the other ladies. The rat is gone. Good, they said. Whose boa did he choose? He didn't choose anyone's boa, Vilma said. The boa chose Benito. The end.
Thanks for reading. All right, so My Brother Needs a Boa was originally published in 2005, but is currently being revised for a re-release for Star Bright's Star Reader series. Can you talk a bit more about this series?
Yes, Starbright Books has a new series of paperback books that are designed to help children get into reading books by themselves. The goal is to help kids discover that reading books on their own is fun. So the Star Reader series, each book is rated at a different level so that kids can start at a level where they're comfortable. And then when they've mastered that, they can move up to the next level. The new edition should be out this winter. And then there should be other books in the series that will follow. Children can read the Star Readers at their own pace without either feeling left behind or that they would rather read faster. They can choose their own speed.
That's great. So now I want to talk about your involvement with Twig. Both you and your mother, Eileen Kilgore Henderson, are members of the Tuscaloosa Writers and Illustrators Guild. Talk a bit more about your involvement in this organization.
The Tuscaloosa Writers and Illustrators Guild, or Twig, is a wonderful group of people with a serious interest in improving their writing that normally meets once a month at the library. It's wonderful to have that opportunity. Right now, the meetings aren't in person. And that brings me to the one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give prospective writers, people who would like to write more or improve their writing. And that advice is to join a writers group, whether a writers group that meets in person or online. This will help you greatly to get feedback from other people interested in writing. It's great to have your family and friends read your work, but you have to remember they may hesitate to, when they see something they think could be improved, they may hesitate to tell you. And in a writer's group, the other members may speak more freely. However, your writer's group or critique group, the most important thing about it should be that people don't attack you personally when they critique your writing. That's not helpful at all. And that so you want a critique group where people will be able to say something positive about your writing, because really anything anybody writes, there's something positive in it most of the time. And then you also want your writers group members to speak frankly about things that don't work in your story. but to do it in a way that doesn't make you feel that you've been personally attacked. It should just be phrased in a way that the person thinks you could express it better in another way. One of the most common ways you can improve your writing is to write whatever it is, your story, your essay, your memory. Get it written down and then go back and take out about a quarter of it. It's so painful when you have worked to produce a piece of writing and then you're told, well, it would be okay if you took out half of it, but very often that's what everyone's writing needs. Even when you're a professional writer, you'll find, write it and then go back. You'll see where you said the same thing several times in different ways, but you'll find you can take out quite a bit of what you wrote because it's repetition. Or another good way, rather than describing how someone feels, get the information in there in the verbs you use. Verbs are very useful in writing to shorten it and give it more impact. But the number one, my number one advice in writing is whether you're writing for your own benefit, a journal maybe so you can remember things years from now, or whether you're writing something for your family so your descendants or relatives will know some of your memories, or if you want to try to get your writing published. In all those cases, the first thing you have to do is sit down and write it. Just get the words on paper, and then after that, you can go back and improve it.
I think that's great advice. And it definitely shows the value of organizations such as Twig. So that concludes our interview. Thanks for joining me. So if someone is interested in picking up a copy of My Brother Needs a Boa, or they're interested in having the Star Readers version, where may they find that?
They can get My Brother Needs a Boa. I believe Ernest and Hadley Bookstore in Tuscaloosa has some copies. They can pick it up there, or you can get it at your usual book sources. The new Star Reader series, you can pre-order on the starbrightbooks.com website, starbrightbooks.com. It's not published yet, but I think when I last checked, they were taking pre-orders. But for the hard copy, you might try Ernest and Hadley here in Tuscaloosa.
All right. Well, that's all we have today. Thanks for joining me. Until next time. Goodbye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.